Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening. Presented by Carolina Lightweight. Come grip with us. When the action begins in the studio, our referees for tonight's event are Elgato Azul and Carolina Real Streamers. For the viewers in attendance and Facebook and YouTube users around the world, this is the moment you've all been waiting for. Live from the Elgato Azul TV studio in Louisville, Texas, it's time! What's up, slime lovers? I'm your host, Chris, a.k.a. Elgato Azul. A partner in Slime Over the Top, Mr. Jamie Dunn, Carolina Lakeweights. In the middle, we got Mark from Cats on the Rock Guide Service. How you boys doing tonight?
Good.
Doing
Welcome
good, brother.
Slime Show, baby.
Man,
So, Mark, tell everybody a little bit about you. And I know you're part of the Slime family, so a lot of the guys know you from the show. But for those that don't know you, tell us a little bit about where you're fishing out of, your guide service, and all that good stuff.
Awesome, man. I'm based out of North Carolina. I predominantly fish on High Rock Lake. I've been fishing that lake for I don't know, the last 15 years. Used to be a heavy into striper fishing, was my real passion, and one bad striper kill turned me into a cat fisherman, and I haven't looked back since.
A lot of guides come from striper fishing. I know, that's how I got started on big cats, blue cats anyways, from catching striper, just an accidental catch. So how often do you get an accidental big blue cat when you're striper fishing?
I'll tell you what's funny, man. Back when my dad and I used to go a lot, I'll never forget at Baden Lake, we hooked into a fish that we could never get turned around and followed it with the trolling motor as long as we could and never saw the fish. So to this day, that's probably the biggest blue cat I've ever hooked into. I know it wasn't a striper, but yeah, we've caught a fair number.
Blues, they like to eat striper.
Absolutely. When I tell people some of the things I found inside a catfish's mouth, man, they don't believe me. But it's if they can fit it in there, man, they're gonna eat it.
That's for sure. What got you into guide service?
So I think I've always had a passion, man, just taking people out and getting them into the sport. A lot of friends and things like that, just kind of seeing what I'm doing and hey, you want to go? Yeah, I want to go, and just watching the man interact when you get one of them big takedowns. I don't know, there's just something special about it. I've caught a lot of fish in my life, and I still enjoy catching them, but I'm at the point now where it's just as much fun, man, to watch someone else catch them. And like I said, I've got three boys. I've got a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, and a 9-year-old, and my 14-year-old, man, he's fished with me since he could ride in a backpack. So, I mean, growing up, watching him handle all the rods, just getting him in the right spot, and told my wife I wasn't getting any younger, and it was an itch that I felt like I wanted to scratch. And so last year I started guiding and just kind of meandered my way through the world of guiding, and it's been fun. I've enjoyed it.
I was going to ask you. I know you get to do a lot of talking with your customers and everything. What do you find the most enjoyable about when you have people on the boat and able to spend some time with them and get to know them and stuff?
Well, man, I'm a people person by heart. So like I can talk to a wall. So I mean, I've had some conversations from veterans to grandparents to wives. I mean, we've covered a broad spectrum of different working careers, fishing backgrounds. But a lot of the people that I've taken out, man, it's interesting how many of them have never really gotten into the sport of catfishing. It's just kind of scratching on the surface. So anybody who follows me knows I'm big on conservation. Like I'm not one to bash people, but that's another part of taking people out. You kind of get that opportunity to spread some love for the catfish and show people that they're not just a bottom feeder, a trash fish, that they're a hell of a sport fish to catch. So
we talked about that a little bit on the show last week about how, if a lot of guys go to learn from guides. So having guides being able to talk about conservation and show people the right way, not just conservation, but, responsible harvest and all that. So
absolutely.
I think it's cool that you do that, and not everybody does.
And people sometimes, and I try to find out before we leave the dock, what is their goal. If we want to target a trophy fish, which in our waters is anything 30 pounds and over, we can do a plan for that. And then, if you want fish to keep to eat, we got a plan for that too. So we can accommodate the best of both worlds. And what I tell folks too is, we have such a population of 10 to 15 pound blue cats in our waters that have no predators. So I almost encourage folks like, hey, if you're going to keep fish, this is a great size to take home and take however many you want, really, because if not, our carrying capacity at that lake's only going to carry so much. So there is an education, a balance, and and on top of that, farm raised catfish is $17 a pound. So
yeah.
Do
y'all have a lot of guys in your area that keep big fish?
No, I don't feel like we have a lot of people that just take them and take them home. I mean, there are some, but we're probably like everybody else. I mean, we fight the pay lake battle and the juggers and all that kind of stuff. And man, to be clear, I mean, I respect the biologists and what they put in place. So if a guy is legally harvesting a big fish, I'm not going to beat you up for it. That's your decision, and so you get to do that. I'm personally not going to do that, and I'm going to promote catch and release, but I'm also not going to beat that guy up for doing something that's not illegal.
I think the biologists, a lot of times they're like retroactive. They wait till there's a problem, and for blue cats, it takes so long for them to get to large size. It's often once they implement the program, it's too late. I mean, it takes 15, 20 years probably before you'll see really a drastic improvement on it. I know that because a lot of our lakes got hammered and they tried to implement, but it was too late, and they just took a beating. So, how are they going to get it where all of us, there's so many of us now that trophy catfish. How are they going to make it where we can all enjoy it? Because not everyone wants to keep them. But a lot of guys, especially like here in Texas, still keep the biggest fish. Every time I'm at the dock, there goes my power.
One thing I find is a lot of the older days, they used to, that catfishing or catfish really got a bad name for itself. Everybody always, oh man, catfish, them things, ain't worth the crap and stuff. And now, today's world, catfishing is, I think myself, as popular as bass fishing, if not popular. And, actually, there's a lot of focus on catfishing now, which is real good, on conservation and stuff like that, from where it used to be back in the days. So, I think of getting some of that older generation caught up on
fish the inlet up at Texoma, and you're going to have a different take on.
That's it. If we can just get everybody caught up on it and back up on the same page, it would be awesome. I
think it's regional. Certain lakes I'll go to, like my home lake, I've spent the last 20 years trying to get people to turn them loose. The majority of the guys on the lake turn them loose. Anybody that really fishes often usually turns the big ones loose. Guys that are just fishing, occasionally, they don't catch a whole lot of big fish. So when they do get one, they generally keep it.
Yeah.
Most of those guys still keeping the big ones. So.
Yeah, we used to be a really, really good flathead fishery at High Rock, and I think it's went on a decline, partially to our big fish being taken out of the waters, but we haven't had blues in our lake at High Rock. I mean, they've really come on strong probably in the last 6-7 years.
Yeah,
and I feel like that's put a hurting on it too. But it's all coming from different areas.
A lot of timber, a lot of stumps.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that's what I've heard guys always say. Yeah, drifting can be difficult in that fishery.
There's spots, man, and the problem with our High Rock out of the whole chain. So we're river fed, so we get the brunt of all the current, and our bottom structure changes so often. That's why I always joke when if I post a picture and someone may see a spot or whatever, and like I can give you my coordinates if you want, because there's so much change going on that it's just driving and scanning and finding a new tree. I found a tree a couple weeks ago that I haven't found, and I've been fishing the same area for the last 10 years. And I mean, the fish has just been stacked on it like a magnet every time I go out there.
We were just talking about we've had a lot of flooding and stuff here local. I know North Carolina and South Carolina here local and stuff. A lot of the rivers and stuff that I fish, and I know up in your area, a lot of the bottoms have changed. A lot of the structures have changed, and they're constantly changing and stuff. How much are you having to spend time wise to look around more and more, or you pretty well got everything,
Well, I think, man, I get a lot of questions why I don't fish other lakes. Our High Rock is our second biggest lake at 16,000, just under 16,000 acres. And I mean, there's creek arms that I just don't get back in a whole lot, not because I don't want to, but because there's so much other area to cover and look and check out. So between the time I have working and time with kids and time on the water, I normally try to schedule a trip and go do that. And then I'll pick a new area on the lake and just spend 30, 45 minutes, not even fishing, just driving and scanning. So I do spend a fair amount of time doing that. I think that's important, the fish finders don't lie. So, you can turn them on, you can buy the most expensive one, the fanciest one, and you think you're going to see all these arches and everything. But I mean, there's times, man, I've driven for an hour and I just don't find what I'm looking for. And then all of a sudden you just hit that sweet spot and man, it lights up. So,
yeah, the most frustrating part is when that thing's lit up like a Christmas tree and you can't get them to bite, which is what I've been dealing with, man. We've been on the biggest freaking piles of fish. Now, I'm not going to complain too much because we've been still catching some giants out of them, but if you saw what we were looking at, you'd be like, oh, there's thousands of them. How can we not? Why are we only getting 3 or 4? Why out of 1,000 you would think when you give them that filet mignon in front of their face, they just big fat guy wants to eat, That's
another one of those questions to put in the fishing science fair project, because I tell people all the time, I said that's what I equate catfishing to. And I've fished for everything. I've bass fished and crappie fished, and I personally feel like trophy catfishing is the hardest of all the species to target on a consistent basis. And when you make a comment like that, you would think you get into a big school of them like that, like it's going to be game on.
Yeah, so not 50-acre area, and it was just acres of big fish scattered. Every time you look at the graph, there'd be 5 of them. Every time on side image, you'd move another 100 feet, there'd be 5 or 10 more. And it was like that for 100 acres. And I mean, we got, I think, 10 fish for the day, but we went over 10,000. I mean, with as many we went over, I thought, man, you don't even need bait. You should just be hooking fish out of here.
Switch to some treble hooks.
That's it. Oh, your clients. How many of your clients wants to go after trophy catfish, and how many of them just really want to just go have a good fun day catching some eaters? What's your ratio on that?
I'll be honest. So in a year's time, a little over a year's time, I think maybe and I've probably run, I don't know, maybe 17, 18 trips so far, give or take. I would say maybe 1 or 2 are really just focused on wanting to get a big fish. What I try to do for folks is kind of break up the day so there's action. Typically, depending on the time of the year, that morning bite we'll try to sit and target a trophy fish, target a particular piece of structure or a ledge or something like that, and give it a good shot at a big fish, knowing, okay, if this isn't happening, this part of the trip will move to where there's some more active, maybe teenage fish. And then if somebody just wants to go put fish in the boat, then we'll go to the back of the creek and downsize everything and you can have at it all day because we got a plethora of channel cats and, like I said, 5, 10, 15-pound blues in that lake.
Nice.
Not as many folks that want to target just big fish as I thought there would be.
I was about to say that's kind of surprising because it seemed like you would basically have a lot more people. And I would be one. Okay, you might catch one, you might catch two, or you might not catch one. Going after the big ones like that. So that's pretty surprising that that a lot more people are not targeting the big catfish.
Yeah. Well, I had a guy when I first got started into it. He said, besides your rod and reels, he said the second most important thing you can own is a comfortable seat.
That's it.
And I think sometimes folks are just out looking for a good time. But we try to cater to it so we can target something big because in my opinion, unless you go to saltwater in the freshwater world, it's hard to beat a big flathead or a big blue. There's just nothing, there's nothing like it in my opinion.
You get a lot of people wanting to learn from you just to get on the boat to try to learn how to become better anglers. I mean,
absolutely, man. I tend to be an open book on and off the boat. I try to be a resource, and I'm that way. And it's not about giving away secrets or anything like that. But I've had so many people as I learned the sport that gave to me. You know what I mean? So I get a lot of messages about
any real secrets left. I mean, we all think we got a couple, but I mean, it's all
exactly.
You can tell somebody where to fish, how to fish, what bait you used, and they can go out there and not catch a damn thing.
That's the thing, man. It's about time on the water and learning to understand. That's why I said I see so many folks that want the $20,000 in electronics and this, that, and the other, and I'm like, man, if you're just getting into it, you're better off to put that in your gas tank and learn to drive around and pattern these fish and figure out what are the fish doing, what are the bait doing.
Or people I think maybe think they're going to come on your boat and all right, now I'm going to know where to fish. And I tell guys, well, you come on my boat, but fish ain't going to be here. I mean, I'm not going to be here next week. I'm going to be where the fish are at. The fish not just going to stay here.
That's right. We had a trip one time. I took as a father and a son out, and we went up the lake and wore them out. Had a great day, and there are no significant changes in weather, pressure, anything. So then I had a trip the next day, so I just assumed we'll start there because there's nothing that I would have felt would have pushed those fish out of where they were. Man, we went up there and we fished that area 2 or 3 hours without a bite. We ended up having to drive 6 miles down the lake at 12 o'clock in the afternoon before we finally found fish that were actively feeding. So you are right. It just depends, man. It's never set in stone.
And the weather conditions and everything was just like the day before.
Yeah, I mean it was about as straightforward a weather pattern as you could get. They were moving water. I mean everything was identical back to back days, and those fish that were up there, my guess is they probably just fed heavily up in that area and sat down in the mud, and the fish that were down deeper in the lake hadn't quite got there yet, and they were actively feeding. So
now you're talking about they were moving the water. I'm not 100%, with High Rock in that area. Do y'all depend a lot on that moving water and stuff?
So current plays a huge role in our chain of lakes. It's not that you won't catch fish, but there's definitely. So I think the best time for big catfish where we're at is if you have a decent rain, let's say 2 or 3 inches. About 2 to 3 days after that front passes and that water starts to move in on our lake, is probably some of the most magical time you'll have.
That's what I'm wanting right now, man.
It's
probably the biggest factor for catching, for consistently being able to catch really, really big fish.
Yep.
You need water coming into the lake because they typically want to start in a lake here. They want to start moving shallow, but you need that water coming in to know where they're going to move to concentrate, because otherwise they're just spread out in the shallows completely all over the lake. And
this up and down weather, man, it's had stuff so scattered. It's like fishing out of a Yahtzee cup. I mean, bait has been. The other morning I went up. We had a tournament on Saturday, and I couldn't go Friday to get bait, so I was like, well, I'll go Saturday morning. So we're on the water, me and my son, at 3 in the morning. I'm like, man, this is where it was a couple of days ago. and we drove to 3 or 4 spots, man, and it was completely opposite from where I would assumed it would have been. It was a little cooler in the morning, so I think that may have pushed him out. But it never surprised me, man. Just when you feel or I feel like I know what I'm talking about or what I think,
Yeah.
it's like, nah, man, he don't know what he's doing.
and that's like here local. I rather fish flooded waters than regular times and stuff. I mean, if the boat lands flooded, I'm putting in and going fishing. I love it.
Yes,
It's
sir.
got new water in there, got the oxygen going, got the fish moving. Got them back streams with that water coming out, and I do a lot better and stuff like that on.
Yep. Lake on the rise, concentration. Lake on the fall, they spread out.
Yep.
And that's typical, not a guarantee, but that's pretty typical for, I think, catfish behavior.
Richard said you got the rain coming, Chris. So,
but they said if you're in there, it's going to be scattered, and
it's not one of those big soakers that we need.
We need one of those giant wall clouds with 3 inches of rain in it. It's like 100% chance it's coming. It's not that it's scattered. It's going to be, I guess if you're in the right area, it looks to be like one of these power cell type deals, 40-mile-an-hour winds.
Yep.
Real tight packed storms. You're either going to get it or you're not. So
that's it. Marvin said the secret is hitting the fish on the head with your bait.
That'll make me mad. That works.
Oh, that's true. That's true, bro. Oh, man. But, yeah.
We didn't run through here. Let me run through here. I don't see a whole lot of guys commenting, but we got a good crowd in here. Alex Texas Fishing says, "What's up, y'all?" Eagle Eyes Juan Tienda says, "What's up, Slime family?" Richard Green says, "Hello, Slimers." Trent Hall, "What's up, guys? Time for some fishing." It's always time for some fishing.
That's right.
Killer B says, "Howdy, y'all." Leland Loy, he's fishing with me Sunday. Come on, buddy. Bring some luck up here with you. Catfish Junkie says, "What's up? I'm ready for Sunday on the water." Me too, bro. I'm fishing tomorrow. I got Rich from Virginia flew in to fish with me. I need to produce. No pressure.
I got a donated trip with Fallen Outdoors tomorrow. So those trips, man. Those trips to me, man, are pressure, man. Because I'm like, dude, I want these to be magical.
Yeah, I'm the same way. And these guys all see what we've been doing, so they put a lot of pressure on me. So that's like, damn it. As soon as we get one good fish, I'm like, yes.
So yeah, I've been there before, man. Sitting like, man, let's just get one good one on the boat, and then we can take a deep breath.
Yeah, then it's a victory lap. So Jesse Ogden, "What's up, guys?" Billy Bever, thumbs up. Dave Duggar, "What's up, fellas?" Brian Henry, "What's up, Elgato Azul, Carolina Lake Weights?" LG Bass, "What's up, Tom Cat?" Bill Journey, "Good evening, Slime Brothers." He's lucky to be alive. Welcome back, Bill.
Bill.
Congratulations,
buddy.
Congratulations to Bill Journey. He was the winner of the free giveaway we done this week too, Chris.
Congrats, Bill. Now you just got to get well enough to go use all that sweet gear you won.
That's right.
Young gentlemen, how are y'all? We are all good. I will speak for the group. Bill says, "Grateful to be here tonight." Trent Hall, "Wait, 16,000 acres is big." I'm 95,000 acres this weekend. I pretty much am going to hone that down into about 1,000 acres. So when I fish that lake, I just pick an area and I freaking work it over. So it's either going to work or I'm going to go home feeling terrible. Well, that's the way that lake works. John Young, Minnesota's in the house. Welcome in, Minnesota. Richard Green says, "On Lake Livingston, Texas, 5 pounds or less on eaters. Our water is too polluted with crap." Richard, I would not even eat a 5-pounder out of there. The Trinity River flows into that, and that is probably one of the most toxic freaking rivers in the country. Don't do it, bro. Marvin Berry, the secret's to hitting the fish in the head with your bait. That's what Jamie already said. Coley says, what's up, guys? Southern Streams, it's slime time. Alex, Texas Fishing says, Mark, what's your PB? And let's just go with what's the PB on the boat, because I almost put that on the thumbnail, and it was freaking giant, dude.
Yeah, so that fish was right around 65 pounds. And the kid that caught him was probably 45 soaking wet. And it was a fun time for sure, man, because that fish didn't bite like he was that big. But it was a fun time, man. We when it popped up the first time, we were all a little on edge. But he did a great. He's fished with me. That was only the second time he's fished with me. He's one of my son's friends, and it seems like he always catches the biggest fish every time we go out. So
lucky little dude, huh?
Signing him up for the next tournament.
Yeah, we caught a 60 this past weekend. It just swam straight to the boat, right in the net. Got up, took some pictures, waved, and went back in the water. Then we caught a 50 it fought like a 30-pounder. It was running all over the place. It got in the boat, bit everybody real good, flopped around on the floor for about 2 or 3 minutes. It was a giant female. It was about a 50-pound female, and she was mad. She was not happy, but we were.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah.
Chris, I don't know about y'all, man, but I've been finding, some of them big ones before we started show season back there where we were doing a little bit of fishing. I've been finding some of them big ones was not acting and biting the way normally you would think they were. They were really sluggish, just kind of just trolling along, not really putting up a whole lot of fight. I was finding that back when I had fish.
We're in warm water now, so they are fighting a lot different. And it's not warmed up yet where they're like, it's not like catching a dolphin, but
yeah,
they are fighting a little different. They're biting a little different. I think they bite different on each lake we fish. I mean, we fish a bunch of lakes. They just bite different, and every lake they fight different. Certain lakes they fight hard. You don't know. I'm like, I'll go from Lake Lavon where we catch a lot of 40s and 50s, and I'll pull one of those in. It's like fighting a 5-gallon bucket to the boat. I'll go up to Texoma, and those fish fight like a river fish. They're running, staying down. A 25-pounder will stay on the bottom. You're like, that's not normal. I mean, most lake catfish, a 25-pounder gives up back there, and you're like, oh, it's about a 25-pounder. But these are staying down. You're like, man, it must be a good fish. And then get it up, and it's, 25-pounder. But I don't know, man. I think I always just tell people you never know till you get the freaking thing in front of your face what you got. You just don't.
Funny.
Or get it close to the boat and then.
I mean, that's true. I've had several of our better fish we've caught here this past couple months, man. You'll see the rod tip will just do that. Just do a couple taps, and you go to reel down on it, man. And next thing you know, I mean, they're gone.
Yeah.
That's it.
There's no monster, nothing exciting for a video camera. Looks like a channel cat.
Yeah. We get that a lot in the winter here. If I had to categorize how they hit, I would say 20s and 30s grab it and run, and big ones typically just grab that sucker and hold on, and that's why your rod just goes.
Yeah, because
they're not I mean, sometimes, like if you're shallow, I think they know they're hooked and they take off like a dolphin. But if you're in a little bit deeper, I think a lot of times it's almost like you're hung, but you can see some tail whipping as it's going down. That's typically a good fish.
You said my magic word, man. I tend to like to fish shallow. That's my that's all year, man. I'll fish shallow when it's 25 degrees outside or 80 degrees outside.
I was getting ready to ask you what is some of your fishing techniques that you like doing on different days, weather days and stuff? Or do you use a lot of planer boards? You do a lot of anchor? I
Is there
know.
anything other than anchors? No, no. So in my mindset, man, and what success has worked for me is it's a combination of everything, man. I like to use my electronics and what they show me. Some of my fishing is my gut feel. Some of my fishing is what's been going on in the world before I set out to fish that may have fish in a certain area. And I typically like to find those areas, and I do like to anchor up. But on our particular lakes, within that first set, 2 hours of one or two spots, you kind of can get the feel if the fish are moving and active, or if they're kind of sluggish or hanging out in the mud. So typically we'll start with an anchor bite most of the time.
Yeah.
But if I feel like things are a little slower, then I'll switch to pulling boards and dragging baits. I'm not opposed to it. If I have a preference one over the other, and especially if I'm out there by myself, sometimes, man, that pulling boards and stuff, you get on all the fish, that's a workout.
Oh, it is. It is. It definitely is. And I do a lot of that down in Santee, but I also do a lot of pulling boards here local on the rivers and stuff, where there's a lot of people that's 100% a lot of times just sitting up and anchored, and I'm pulling boards and stuff, and it's definitely, man, it'll wear you out for sure.
But at the same time, sometimes you make that switch, and man, it's turned on the light switch, man. Your bite to catch ratio will increase significantly, as opposed to just sitting there when fish aren't moving. So
that's it. That's what got me pulling a lot of boards on the rivers and stuff. I've come from the anchor fishing. I love it to death, and then started doing a lot of it on the rivers, and then like, well, damn, I'm starting catching a lot more fish, and people are like, man, what in the world? I mean, you pulling boards on a river, I've never seen nothing like that. So yeah, you're right. I mean, it can definitely help you out on catching fish, or just sitting there not really catching nothing.
I think the best thing there is just kind of falls back to time on the water, man. Just be proficient in all types of it. There's been days where the wind's been killer and I couldn't set up the drag that I wanted, but you learn to throw that drift sock out. And I remember one time it was in November and I could only keep like 4 rods out, and I just drifted across this point down to a channel, and the way the wind was blowing, so like every time I dropped in that channel, all 4 rods would get pegged. Get a little bit further, reel them up, go back. And I sat there and did that thing all day, man. That was one of the few times I was ready to stop fishing because I was so sick of catching fish by myself.
Tyler Jones says, like today, he caught 5 in a row, 2 18s, 23, 29, and a 41 with 2 hours and didn't get a bite. Rest of the day, caught them on deep point dragging bait.
Yep.
So here's the deal with the deep point. That's ambush structure. And sometimes fish will sit on ambush structure and wait for the bait to come to them. And you can either put the bait in front of their face, or you can drag the bait to them as it's a fish coming to structure. That's the natural presentation that they're actually looking for. Fish on structure are more likely to bite. That's why when you hit those little sweet spots, you're going to notice over time your best fish are almost always going to come off of that high value real estate. There's something about that point that they're sitting there. It's not like they're swimming all around. A lot of guys are like, oh, it's a highway. I'm like, no, that's the freaking sweet spot. They're actually just laid right there. So take note of that point and then try to reproduce that anytime you can. Start looking for those little sweet spots, and your big fish catch ratio will freaking go through the roof when you start to realize and understand the more of those sweet spots you can put into your algorithm over time, you're going to freaking be able to just produce those things on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
I've got a question for you too. When do you start putting your springtime strategies in line? When do you start making those preparations?
I think for me, a lot of it just has to do with what's going on weather-wise. Like I said, so like last year, it was really mild. So, for instance, in our lake, our fish tend to want to stage up in the middle of the lake. Most of the time, February, late January last year, and those fish were already starting to make a move up in the river. We were catching some fish in March last year. I haven't even bothered to go up to the river yet because the water's been so cold. So I just start putting it on my radar once we get into the end of February, March, really depending on what's been going on weather-wise. If it's been mild, then
and that's pretty much the number one factor for most of the fishing that you do is weather that just happened and weather that's on the way.
That's right. I was actually just sitting here thinking, man, there's so many things at our fingertips that can put us in a place of success before we ever get on the water, whether it's wind apps or barometric pressure apps. I can check the flow of what's going on at High Rock. So before I even put my boat in the water, I get in my truck to leave, I've already looked at all that stuff to at least, and I've heard you say that before too, like you kind of already have a spot in your mind that you're going to go to.
It's like by the time that the time comes that you're loading up to go fish, you pretty much know where to go, right?
That's right.
I mean, it's like you don't have to even think, all right, I know what just happened. I know what's on the way, and I know what today is. This is where I'm fishing.
Yep. And it just helps, man. That way I'm not wasting time once I get out there with the fish finder. The weather, the flow, what's happened the week before, a couple of days before, what's coming, like you said, it just narrows down that learning curve.
Get out there and none of that crap is. It's not where the fish aren't where they're supposed to be, and I would say probably about 5% of the year you're going to have to just go figure something out that's completely different than what is in what they should be doing, and then that's the day where you learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
And no matter how long you do it, there's always going to be some of those days.
Oh, absolutely. And those are the days that you really got to pay attention, because those are the ones you got to remember for next time.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't tend to take the time when you're having that epic day of catching all these fish, not really making notes about what's going on. You know what I mean?
I tell a lot of guys that say that exact thing. When something is really working in your favor, okay, and you get caught up in the moment, but when you're leaving, take some time to see what's going on the graph, to pay attention on all the little factors on why you think that worked, and then try to if that scenario arises again, you'll know what to do exactly. And you can start looking for those things that are going to improve or help you have those epic days. Before you know it, you're having epic days all the time.
That's it.
Yeah, I tell you, for the guys out there that may just be getting into it, or guys that have been doing it for a while without consistent success, get something to log that information on every trip. Nothing will help you start to learn to pattern fish more than tracking everything.
Yeah.
Good and bad.
But then when I got Navionics, I started keeping the pins with the dates, and I would make notes on all of it. Okay. Yep. And I used that for years, but I mean, at this point, it's just.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
It kind of clicks. You fish in the same body, but even
at a certain point, a light bulb it's like, okay, all right, now I just know what to do. So
yeah.
Let me ask you this. I know we've talked about this earlier in the year, Chris, on the show. We're going into a full moon right now, pretty much. Is your strategy changing? Are you finding out the full moon bites are a little bit different for you right now, or they're?
I don't really. I feel like, for me, I feel like the moon more dictates what the bait's doing more so than that it's really affecting the fish. The only time I'll say I feel like it's really affected the fish for me personally is maybe when I'm flathead fishing on those super bright full moons. I tend to find the bite to be harder. But I've got buddies I fished with that they have epic nights. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'll notice in the morning typically, like for instance, so we're at a full moon right now. I've got to go get bait in the morning. I would almost be willing to bet that whatever bait I go find in the morning can be pushed up shallow because of all this light.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be deep. So in my mind, tomorrow when I set out to start fishing, I'm not gonna really look in any deep water because I know where that bait's gonna be pushed up to. Just from experience. Now I might be wrong, but I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, a lot of guys say, "Oh, you're not going to catch anything. It's a full moon. They ate all night." I'm like, I don't know. I've been fishing my whole life. Fished a lot of full moons and hammered them. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you, there's one thing that really generally puts a damper on them is it's a high barometric pressure. But I've had great days on high barometer days, so I just go.
Yeah.
I think no matter what the circumstance is, if it's a day the front's hitting, typically not great. But hey, my best day of fishing was on a day of big giant front hit. So now I'm like, hell, I want to go fish every time there's a big front, even though it's gonna equal probably more ass kickings. But
that's like the final exam day right there. You got to take everything you've learned and you got to figure it out, man.
Yeah.
It's nice when you go out there and you set up in your first spot and you don't have to move and you catch fish all day. But the reality is that doesn't happen all the time everywhere we go. So, especially, for me, it's like, especially when you have the added pressure of taking people fishing. It's one thing if I go out by myself, I don't really have any expectations besides I'm just going to have a good time. But the moment you take somebody, there's that little bit of added pressure. So,
I've got a question for y'all guys. Tyler was asking if I could take a couple, talking about y'all's prospect on how much does the that word gets me every time, parametric pressure, how much does that play with y'all? I know they say some days when the pressure's low, some days they might not catch as much as with the pressure
high. Pressure is going to be a slow bite day. They lay down in the mud. They typically feel bad. Can you not have a good day? You can have a great day on a high barometric pressure day. You do have to change some things. Mark, what do you do on a high barometer day that's different than a day that's that's just a regular fishing day where there's
Well, one thing for me, typically, I found myself doing more on a high pressure day is pulling baits and moving, looking for a more active fish. If I'm not doing that, I'm scanning the structure that I know, typically a little bit deeper. If I can find some good trees or logs or stuff like that, typically there's going to be some fish held up there.
Do you put baits lower to the bottom since they're laid up in the mud, or you just roll the same way?
I always just have a mix depending on what I'm seeing on my graph. I mean, if those fish are sucked up to the mud, that's another thing too, especially at our lakes. Pay attention when you catch that fish. What do they look like? So there's sometimes, man, those fish come up and they're squeaky clean. And there's other times you pull those fish up and they're up to their mud to their dorsal fin. So all kinds of little things like that, those little nuances that you shift as the day goes on. I typically, when I put a spread of baits on, unless there's just one particular one that's getting hammered every single time, I typically will switch up my leader length, my depth on the bottom, floating. I throw a bobber this time of year. I'll start throwing a bobber out there depending on what's going on.
What do y'all consider a higher pressure? What a day? I mean, what do y'all consider that?
Generally, it's post front. You're going to have almost either no wind or an east wind day. Barometer is going to be up over 30. It's now, if you've got high barometric pressure for more than a day, fish are going to eat. And it's pretty much the same with any negative type of weather. If you have the same weather for multiple days in a row, it negates whatever shut them down.
Correct. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that.
Out the window and just go fish. And
so
just like that drop, that severe drop in low pressure will turn the fish on. Typically, the sudden spike in high pressure will do the complete opposite.
So what do you consider the perfect pressure day?
I don't think for me, I don't think that there's a perfect one. I think for me, it's more the trends. I mean, I'm probably with the vast majority, the fishing before a front, the day of the front typically has always been probably my better days historically.
I like consistent weather patterns. If I can get whatever weather pattern for 3 days in a row, the third day of it, going to be great fishing. Doesn't matter if it's north front hitting. It doesn't matter if it's high barometer for 3 days. It doesn't matter. Cold front, third day of a cold front, usually epic. And a lot of times you're the only guy out on the water because everybody else says, oh, it ain't even worth fishing. And they're like, Colin, how's it going out there? I'm like, we're freaking laying waste to the lake. You should have came fishing, buddy.
Man, that the whole barometric pressure thing, man, that's like a whole nother course in college to go take, because you can start getting into, water below 30 feet, and there's people out there that say it's a completely different atmosphere, and at that point the pressure is irrelevant. I'm not a
I don't know about
scientist.
all that as well. I think that we catch them in both, but we change our game. And typically, when we got a high pressure deal, or we put our stuff down close to the bottom, and we've slowed down. This year, I've sped up. I don't know why this year was different than the last decade of doing it that way. But this year, we went faster than we ever went on. And I fished a ton of freaking high pressure days this year.
Yeah.
Way more this year. I don't know why this year I fished so many high pressure days, but we fished a bunch of them. And it was almost exactly the same every time. We went 0.6 instead of 0.3. We smoked them. We had great trips every freaking time it was high pressure. We freaking killed them.
Isn't it crazy what that little bit of speed change will do?
It's wild.
Single fish if we were going 0.3, 0.4. Yeah. We wouldn't get a freaking bite. But as soon as I kicked it up, and my buddy's like, man, we're doing everything you said to do. I was like, throw all that shit I said out the window. Sure. Go fast, because man, we found smoking them over here.
And we found a lot of that this year. I mean, we talked about it, Chris, where it's like, man, this year's a little bit different than the past. Having to do some tweaks and stuff to your game plan. Just playing with your speed, all kinds of different stuff.
I went deep when I normally go shallow. I went shallow when I normally go deep. I don't know why it was so backwards for the longest time. It was a different year for location, for the way they bit. Just everything was different. And I mean, we had to, adapt in order to catch fish, but it worked out for us because we had a great year.
Just like Tyler was saying here on chat, said he pulled 0.6 today, no bite, 0.4 caught fish. Just that little bit.
I tell him to log it and save that for next time it happens.
Yep. That's very good advice, guys. That's for sure. Like we were talking about earlier.
Changing the speed is one of the easiest
dip
things that you can do. If you're not getting bit and you've been going for 30, 40, 50 minutes, bump it up in 0.1 increments, because 0.1 can make all the difference between 0 bites and all of a sudden you just bumped it up. Try 0.1, 0.2 faster. And a lot of times you got fish that are actually just following you. And now that you bumped it up, now they start biting. And then it's going to be they consistently start biting at that speed. So changing that speed, dialing that speed in is probably one of the easiest ways that you can change your presentation. And I do that. That's one of the things I do all the time. All my buddies like, man, how fast you going over there? I hear you hooting and hollering. We ain't even getting a bite. I'm like, you going too fast, or you're going too slow.
Chris, back when I was fishing earlier, this year, I think I had pulled baits faster this year than I've ever pulled in my life. I mean, this year
I had a buddy telling me he was going 0.9 and hammering him, and I'm like, I'm like 0.9. That'd be like 30-mile-an-hour wind for me, just because I'd have, like.
I've had some days where that 0.9, even up to a mile an hour, man, that I've caught fish, and I couldn't believe it when I was catching them. I was like, this shouldn't happen, but lo and behold, there they were.
I guess they're like, oh, it's getting away from me. I better go grab that sucker.
That's the only thing I could think of, man. They had a split second to make a decision.
Reaction bite with dragging that that there's something to that flutter. It's going by. They're like, oh, I got to get it.
And I like it I want to see some action. I want to see a little bit of jumpage. I want to see something going on. Because I know if you're seeing a little bit of that, the fish are definitely seeing it. And knowing that they're down there, and they're going to react to it.
Be good, Bill. Hope you feel better, buddy.
When we were talking about when to switch to springtime tactics, I'll tell you another thing to pay attention to, or at least for me, is what are the other species of bait fish doing? Because you're coming out of wintertime, and for us, we're predominantly gizzard shad, but you start paying attention to what, like for us coming up next, like I don't know if you guys can all use crappie or not, but in our lake, crappie is like a really good bait. And as soon as that water starts getting in the 50s, everything starts making that migration to the creek mouths and things like that. It's almost like it goes from you were getting an all shad bite, and then next thing you know, man, it's like 50-50. And then by the time we get towards the end of April, like crappie will be like your predominant bait. Same for us with carp as well. Like right now up on our flats, the carp are up there jumping around like crazy, and it's no surprise that all the blue cats are they're right behind them. So that's just something else to pay attention to too. If you've been using shad and getting bites, and all of a sudden that stops, you may want to reconsider what you're using, or at least switch it up.
I think the reason catfish spawn later than the other game fish is because they eat all those game fish feeding up for their spawn. So they're the last ones to go because they're feeding on crop. First, they're feeding on threadfin, then they're feeding on crappie, and then the sand bass. We got white bass, so they run up into the rivers and creeks and they feed on them, and then and bass as well. So I think that big fish, they actually eat more of those than they actually do a lot of shad.
Yeah. Absolutely. Hard to beat a 10-inch crappie.
Yeah, anything in the lake likes those.
I wish we could here in South Carolina.
Yeah. We'll enjoy it while we have it.
I see Jason said here in a 90 to 100 degree days, we absolutely pull 0.9 and light them up in hotter weather.
Yeah, hotter weather, that's the general rule of thumb. The warmer the water, the faster you go. I guess fish are more active, but
that metabolism is wide open.
Like bigger fish are actually very lethargic. They don't want to have to work real hard for stuff. So we catch a lot of smaller fish pulling fast, but we don't catch a ton of big fish in the summer, but when I do start marking big ones, I try to slow down because I feel like they don't want to spend a lot of energy. It's hard on them that time of year.
I think them trophy blues are like my teenage kids, man. They just want an easy meal and they don't want to do nothing. They just want to chill.
That's it.
And the bigger they get, the less they want to move. A lot of them just sit there. Like, they want the bait right there, and then they're just like, all right, I'm going to eat it. So.
Hit them on the head.
I know we're getting ready here shortly. We're going to be turning up some flatheads here pretty soon. I know we're getting ready for that.
I was just looking at one of the websites for the lake, and I think they had temps up to 56 degrees today. So I'd be surprised if we don't get on a couple tomorrow.
Yeah, that's you should start getting on them here pretty soon. Then
there's been some guys catching them. They're starting to wake up now. So that's my favorite, man. That's a 50+ pound flathead is, man. There's just nothing like it in my opinion.
That's it. It's hard to be a good big old flathead. That's for sure. What's your tactic? Changing up, trying to catch on some flatheads. Are you changing up a lot, or?
I mean, so typically, like I really about two weeks ago, man, I started mixing half live, half cut bait. And it's hit or miss. I mean, I've caught good flatheads on cut bait, and I've caught good flatheads on live bait. Just kind of depends on time of the year, what particular part of structure I'm fishing. But typically, right now.
Which one you prefer, live or cut? That's a big question a lot of people ask.
So when I'm flathead fishing in the fall, I like big fresh cut bait. If I'm flathead fishing now, as we're getting between now and through the spawn, I mean a big live brim, like I'm saying, a big 10-inch crappie, big live white perch. Any of those make great baits. I don't think there's any one that's any better than the other. I think it's more just location.
Yeah, we had a guy on that's probably the king of live scoping giant flatheads, and he's like, man, it's really about putting the bait in the right spot, because he's like, we catch them on jigs. it ain't about the bait.
Yeah.
It's putting the bait where it needs to be, and then presenting it the right way. He's like, if it's not presented the right way, they're like, nah. And he's like, you have it a foot over. If it's not right where they want it, they won't go get it. He's like, I thought that was a pretty interesting show, because he said, man, there are so many flatheads. Guys don't realize how many flatheads there are, because they're just very hard to catch.
Yeah.
He's like, guys that are on anchor don't realize a lot of times they're anchoring. There are fish right there where they're anchored, but
yep.
You got your bait right here. The bait needs to be right here, or they won't bite it. They won't go get it. So,
yep. I will say that probably more of my bigger flatheads have come after a long anchor set. Yeah. I typically will try and as we start fishing at night too, to get somewhere near some deep water, but also shallow. And a lot of times, man, I'll throw my baits right on the bank. I mean, it's almost equivalent to bass fishing. It's as close up to that shallow water as I can get, and I'll get bit more up there on bigger fish than I will 20 yards off the bank.
A lot of people has a misdirection about flatheads. A lot of people think you got to drop it in deeper water on the bottom. Really, truly, go up shallow, drop it down just below that water. I mean, you can almost see the bait and catch a lot more flatheads doing it that way. How much do you find out the current? You trying to put your baits out the current where it's real slow, or you put them in a little bit of current also?
Well, I mean, like if we're actually fishing up in the river, we're at up in the Yadkin, anywhere we can find some kind of current break. Typically, you'll find some smaller fish will be out cruising the flats, but typically your bigger fish are going to come pretty close to some type of structure, not too far off from it.
Trying to get through. I have lost chat, Chris. Everything's froze up on me.
I'll get y'all caught up. We got behind, so. Rob Shimaki says we cleaned some blues last week that already had some eggs in them, and yes, they start producing eggs sometime in the winter, and it takes a while for them to develop, so they'll be ready by May. Wheeler says my rule of thumb is for dragging is 0.3 at 30 degrees, 0.4 at 40, 0.5 at 50, 0.6 at 60, 0.7 at 70, 0.8 at 80. That's a decent rule of thumb, but it really I go with the daily condition.
Yeah.
I bump it up or down depending on how the bite's going.
If you really pay attention to those fish, man, they'll honestly tell you what they want.
Yeah.
Sometimes we want them to eat the 10-inch crappie, or the big piece of the big carp head. When in fact, sometimes that's that big fish we were talking about earlier that came off our boat. I mean, it come off a half of a 5-inch gizzard shad.
Yeah.
And I think that was in November. So
it was looking for a snack.
Yeah. I mean, it just sometimes there's so many variables, man. That's the thing that'll drive you crazy about catfishing. Well, really any fishing is just the amount of variables that you got to keep up with.
60 Saturday, Sunday come off a bait about like that, and the 50 come off of a fillet probably about like that. We lost a tank yesterday off of a headpiece that was like a freaking cannonball, dude.
We were sitting anchored up on this tournament we fished this past weekend, and we had a couple of big crappie, and we just cut in two pieces and threw it out. And we were sitting out there about 20 minutes, man. The rod just buried. Got up and he was gone. Threw it back out. About 10 minutes later, smacked it again. Went to go reel down on it. Man, it was probably like a 6-pound blue. And I was like, dude, you got to be kidding me, man. Like, I was like, come on, man.
Smallest fish Saturday. We had a bait on. We were when we went up there, I was like, we're not catching any small fish. We're going to put on all monster baits. And we caught we had the baits on that big. We caught a fish that was that big.
That just means he's got genetics for a trophy fish.
It's like, whoa, dude. How are you eat that, little buddy?
I've got my chat unfrozen and everything froze up on the computer here. They were asking, what area are you doing some flathead fishing in?
Are they talking about me?
Yeah.
Particular to High Rock or just in general?
Just in general, pretty much. They were just, Eric was just asking. He just, I believe, coming in the chat.
So for me in the fall, I've caught them targeting structure, and I've caught them on the flats, points, anything like that. As we transition now into the spring, and into the summer months, I'm getting back in some of the creeks and catching them. Some of the shallower creek mouths where like the depth of the creek may be like 8 foot, the mouth of the creek might be 8 foot, will be good spots. And then as we transition up to the river, up in the early stages of the river, just near any kind of structure we can find. And structure on our lake might be, 3 logs that washed together that weren't there last year that are there now. It might be like we just had a big drawdown, so the lake was down 10 foot, which is a great time to drive around and take pictures because I found stuff I didn't know was there before, and it could be it could be 10 boulders stacked together, just things like that, man. And if I'll give it 45 minutes an hour, and if I'm not getting bit, if I feel really good about the spot, I may get it a little bit longer, and then I'm moving to the next piece of structure.
Have you ever gone back to that structure to refish it later on or something like that?
Maybe not particularly that day, but at different times of the year I have, and done good. And it's definitely paid off.
Because Randall was saying that he was his son-in-law was anchored up on a spot for 2 hours, left the spot. A friend of his come in about 10 minutes later and caught a 68-pound flathead off of that same spot.
Well, that was going to be the other thing I was going to get at. I equate sometimes flathead fishing or even blues to almost like deer hunting.
Yeah.
I may set up in a spot that I have high confidence on that if I get there before the fish start moving, I'm basically banking on these fish are coming here for a reason. And that's paid high dividends for me too. There's guys that may ride over that spot, not mark anything, and completely pass it by. Whereas I'm like, well, I'm going to set up there because I know from experience that it's going to be a matter of time before these fish are going to move through. Does it always work out? It doesn't, but it has worked out a lot for me.
And that's like here on the river. I've got spots I might get to a little bit earlier and say, okay, I'm going to get set up. But I'm going to set up. I know by what time they should be within this foot of water, 2 foot of water on this ledge, and go ahead and set up on it. And normally by that time, getting everything set up, the fish start moving in and everything like that. Just knowing your spots, knowing what time normally a lot of the good bites and stuff start happening around what time and stuff. I found a lot of them areas that I do a lot of that.
Absolutely. And that just sounds like you're really in tune with the body of water that you're fishing.
Yeah.
And that's important. Sometimes you may find a spot that you really like and you're so in love with it that you forget that the fish are moving. They were there and it was good, but you got to pick up and you got to where the fish going to.
That's it. And that's like we tell a lot of people, learning your body of water is just the biggest thing about it. Get to know it, get to know your fish, the pattern and everything, and you'll start catching a lot more fish.
That's the number one thing for me in catfishing. They're such an incredible species, and I just think they're not given enough credit for how smart of a species they are. And I think that's the intrigue for me, man. It's just why is this fish doing this on this day in these conditions? And it almost, I don't want to say it consumes me, but when you made that post about you thinking about fishing, and I'm like, man, I was in there busting tile out of a bathroom the other day, man, and I'm sitting there looking outside, like thinking about where I'm going to take these folks at and why I think this is going to be the spot to take them. And I don't know, it's just kind of been that way for me. It's a drug, I guess.
I've got a lot of friends that's fishing, getting ready for a tournament this weekend on Santee Cooper, the big cat brawl, and I've got talked to them, a couple of them, like today, didn't have as much wind down there as they thought. The fishing. A lot of them caught, a lot of smaller fish today, was asking me some stuff. And, I tell them, down there, I like a lot of wind with slower troll, slower wind. I like a faster troll.
What do y'all do when there's no wind? Like
I
when
go
the
faster.
wind dies? Because I know what I do. What do you guys do? When the wind, if you're out there, let's say you're fishing the flat. There's fish all over the flat. and all of a sudden the wind just craps out and the party's over. The fish on the flat lock up. What do y'all do?
Normally, depending on the time of day, I'm going to move to some type of structure. I'm gonna look. Yeah, I'm gonna look for. And again, man, it's like when I tell people if I'm targeting the flat, I'm not just going up there hoping for whatever. There's all kinds of scatter stuff throughout our lake and everybody else's lake.
You're on a jackpot flat where there's tons of fish on it, right? I mean, you're fishing the graph. You fish the graph, right?
Yeah.
You're not just out there hoping there's going to be some fish that want to bite.
No, and that's why I said earlier. Like I'll give you a perfect example. I was out with some guys a couple weeks ago, and in the bite where we were at slowed down, and the sun had been out, and I was like, no, we're just gonna flip the coin and we're gonna go fish this spot. And the only thing that drew me back there, I didn't mark any bait, and I didn't mark any fish, but I felt good about it because I knew it was a shallow mud flat, and it had been warm. The sun was out. I said, I know these fish are going to be back here cruising. And again, I didn't mark anything. And we got back in there, man, and we set up at 5-6 foot and, just fan casted. Man, it wasn't 15 minutes, dude, and it was on fire the whole time. The last hour and a half we was back there. So and that's why I said sometimes it comes back to, like, electronics is part of it, your gut's part of it, what's going on before you ever leave and get to the lake is part of it, and learn to put all them together. Sometimes the fish finder just tells you. But when that's not the case, what do you do? You know what I mean? What do you do? That's where understanding your fish comes in.
That's it. Tubbs, what's up, buddy? Windy down there, huh? Good deal.
Tyler Jones says it was 80 today, and 0.8 wasn't it. Well,
what was the water temps?
I don't know, but it was my temperature gauge in my truck said 91. I don't know that it was that hot today. It was probably 85. There's no freaking way I'd be going 0.8, 0.9. Our water temp yesterday was 57. So
yeah,
I'm still going. I was going 0.6. We caught a 40 and a 30. Bite was terrible. We lost a freaking monster. But, I mean, that's fishing, Trip before, I think we went 0.5. It was super windy. I wanted to go faster, but fish didn't want to bite going faster. So we slowed it down and we caught fish. It was, you just got to play with it. So
what about what do y'all find as far as how you cut and prepare your bait? You think that makes a difference?
Oh,
are you a fillet? You a flapper? Just a head? Just a chunk?
I like a lot of fillet.
Yeah, I use fillets or the whole thing with the tail chopped off. I like natural presentation. I don't typically fish a whole lot of chunks unless it's the headpiece. If I got a giant bait, I got to throw that big ass head on just because my buddy's like, you ain't going to catch nothing on that. I said, well, if we do, then it's going to be something that you ain't ever caught because you never throw this bait.
Oh, man. Yeah, I'm with you, man. I like to fillet down one side, cut the tail off, but then I like to cut 3 strips in that fillet so it's more swimming around, moving like that.
A lot of times the bait I'm using is pretty fluttery. So when I shave that thing off to the back, that back half is got a lot of flutter to it. I think that's especially dragging, but you anchor in current, which is pretty much like dragging.
Yeah.
You're presenting that bait as it's got a little bit of life left in it. It's not just a dead chunk.
I bring that up, man, because I have noticed, and again, I try to do different things on it. And I normally fish with 10 rods. So I try to break it up into different things. And it is amazing how a bait prepared one way on certain days will outfish a bait prepared another way on the same day.
They'll hit anything. They'll eat any chunk, whatever fillet you throw, but that's maybe 5 to 10% of the time. They typically and I'm going for really big fish. So throw the eaters out the door. Okay. If you're going for really big fish, they typically eat live fish.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of dead stuff. If they are targeting something that's injured, it does still have some life left in it. So I think presenting your bait like it's got a little bit of life left in it is what they actually want. If you can do that, I believe your big fish catch ratio dramatically improves. So
that's it. Tub says Santee water temperature 58 degrees today.
That's what we're dealing with, Tub.
Nice.
Our fish at 58 here, the fish there's been two patterns. We caught really big fish up in 10 feet. I marked them up to about 6 feet out to about 15, but then I found another good group, and that group was around carp. I marked another pattern that was out around threadfin and gizzard shad, and that was in 30 feet. So, and we caught a 50 out of that group. So they're not going off the same. They're not running on the same program. Because
this year it seems like the fish have been scattered.
There were no shad up shallow. It was all carp with gar feeding on them, and everything we caught was giant.
Yeah, them catfish are right behind eating them injured carp.
Yep, that's right. A lot of guys there was carp, so I didn't, or there was gar feed. Marked a lot of gar and carp, so I didn't fish it. I'm like, okay. I mean,
I tell you what,
it's not going to be a lot of fish when you fish that, but the ones that you do catch
will be good.
Will be really good.
Yeah, if I get into an area and I start seeing them carp flopping around, and I know they're up there and I'm marking them, man, I'm going to stop and fish it. I mean that's just, they're up there munching, man. They ain't after no little 6-inch gizzard
that pattern. And I used to never fish it. I mean, I was all coming up as an anchor fisherman. You were taught to move away from the gar just because it's brutal beatdown because they keep picking your bait up and you're just getting pickups all day and no fish. But I think when you're moving a little bit, I don't generally get a whole lot of gar pickups. So yeah, don't be afraid to fish the gar and the carp, boys. You might get your best fish of your life.
I would definitely be. I know exactly what my game plan would be right now down there for sure. Oh man, you don't know how bad I would love to be down there. I know
it.
I know first thing in the morning what I would do. I
can see it's bothering you not being able to fish it.
I just want to say though, man, good luck to all the boys down there for sure. Yep. Hope y'all have a safe, fun tournament and stuff like that. Wish I could be there with y'all guys.
I've been watching all Tubbs TikToks today. He's been back there filming in that back seat, cruising around today.
Yeah, he's turning into a social media guy now.
Oh man, what I would give to be fishing down there this week.
Man, I don't know how well the fishing's going to be. I'm sure. I know y'all are going to have a good time. So really, that's what it's all about. But hopefully, y'all catch some monsters. It's that time of year, man. You're either going to be in the right spot catching really big fish, or you're going to be freaking butthurt because somebody else is doing it and you got to go witness it. So hopefully you're one of the guys that's in the right spot, Tub. Oh, man.
James. Fun time of year to fish for sure.
That is for sure, especially coming up. April's coming up, and I know normally April is a pretty good month for us around here on the rivers and
pre-spawn. Feeding up. They know they're about to shut down and spawn.
Yep. Now, what do you do after that spawn? How tough it gets for you?
I go smallmouth fishing and fix my boat.
I figured you would say something like that.
I really, man, once we get into and again it's all dependent on our weather, but typically June through the first couple weeks in July, I just don't really I mean, at that point in time it really is. I try to get maintenance projects done on the boat and I do it. We live pretty close to the new river where we're at, man, and I've been smallmouth fishing up there since I've been in high school. So my son likes to go do that. So we'll take a couple of weeks off from catfishing and go do that for a little while, and we're back at it. So
yeah,
that's all good.
Car fishing. So
man, I had a trip last year. These guys come down from Ohio, and the heat index, which is kind of uncommon for us in North Carolina, was supposed to be 103. This was sometime later in June. And I told him, I said, man, I'm not going to promise you, anything great, but I'll take y'all out if you want to go. Yeah, we want to go. It's not going to be bad. Man, I picked these boys up. Man, we caught fish all day long. We left fish biting. The two kids that they brought, they was sick of fishing. They was ready to go back. They had caught them all day, and the son and his dad, man, they were still wearing them out. And I left that day and I said, this just doesn't make any sense today. The bite, maybe the first couple hours in the morning should have been good, but the fact they were feeding all day, man, I still don't understand why to this day. But
yeah,
that's fishing.
That's it, man. You never know. I know normally that time of year, man, I'm hitting it at night going for the flatheads. And,
yeah.
That's when we really on fire with them around here for sure.
Yeah, nighttime fishing is going to start kicking off here pretty soon.
Do you do a lot of the trips at night or mostly during the day?
So I haven't done any guide trips at night yet. I still fish in the evening quite a bit, but I haven't messed. And I haven't really had a whole lot of folks that want to do it yet. But that may change this year. So.
I know there's a lot of guides that say they rather not take people out at night just because of the safety and
liability
and stuff. They mostly do more of the daytime stuff, and I was just wondering if that's pretty much the same with you also.
I think that definitely weighs into it. I mean, there is definitely an element of safety involved with it. But I mean, if somebody wanted to go, I mean, like I said, I feel comfortable enough to take folks. I think it kind of depends on the level of the angler you're taking out too. Probably taking someone out who's just getting into it may not, you know what I mean, versus someone who's been fishing for a while and wants to go tangle with a big flathead too.
A lot of my guide buddies, they say it's their wives. They're like, my wife doesn't want me going out on night trips, so we don't do night trips. I'm like, you're a pretty smart guy.
It could be a good bite, but we'll see as it unfolds, man. This whole like navigating, trying to guide and do a full-time job, just kind of taking it as it comes along. You know what I mean? So
that's it. I know, like
he's got good fish on High Rock on 100 degree at 2 p.m. before. Also, I was very surprised. You know, we do catch something big because I fish year round and it's 100 degrees here a lot in Texas, but I don't typically catch big fish when it's really hot in the daytime. I have, and I was very surprised because it's not typical. So.
No, it's one of those moments. Like I said, you leave and you're like, what all came together to make this day what it was?
I've tried to duplicate it many times. I've noticed there's a certain time of year where all of a sudden, all right, now I look back last 5 years and all right, right about first, second week in August, I'm starting to catch some giant fish in the daytime. So I make sure that, I don't know what it is. I'm not sure. I wish I did, but I just know now. I make sure I go then.
Yeah.
I'll make sure I do a morning trip and an evening trip because it seems like first couple weeks in August, I always catch some really big fish. They're real scrawny looking, but some giants.
Man, they're feeding up after getting off them beds, man. They're ready.
Yeah, yeah. But shouldn't they be off the beds long before that? I mean,
I kind of like you said, man. I just feel like everything's kind of going at its own pace. We feel like, all right, it's June. All the flatheads should be sitting on the nest and doing this. And
yeah, and they spawn for 2 weeks. Well, if they only spawn for 2 weeks, then why aren't the second week in June, why aren't everybody here catching big fish?
Yeah.
A lot of guys like from the river, like, oh, I'm going to come to Texas. We're going to show you. I'm like, really? You're going to show we got more catfish anglers in Texas than any other state. You're going to show everybody else that's here that's been doing this for 30, 40 years. All of a sudden, you're going to come here and show us how to catch big fish in July and August.
Yeah.
Come on, man. If it was possible, somebody would have figured it out.
Exactly. They're just stubborn. I don't blame them, man. I'm going to be hanging low and not doing much when it's 100 degrees.
Can you catch one? Yes.
So,
but is there a season for big fish? Yes.
oh yeah,
Rick
absolutely.
I made a
here.
post, Mark, about I can't wait for big fish season. This was like in August, and we had caught like a good fish. And I'm like, I look back and we'd gone 4 trips and we caught 1 decent fish on each trip. And they're like, I didn't realize there was a season for big fish. I'm like, well, I'm about to show you what big fish season is because it ain't 1 fish per trip, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. I think some people just like to talk smack.
I know Richard said here in Texas, looking for gator at night is a trip.
Oh, dude, that sounds pretty spooky.
Man, I love it. I love it.
Michael Cox says ready to hit the water Saturday. Me too. I'm hitting the water tomorrow. So
yep.
I need something magical. Just one magic trick to happen. So,
Chris, got a question for you. Have you noticed forward-facing sonar like LiveScope has had an effect on fish?
it's had an effect on freaking fishermen's minds that fish tournaments against William Oliver because he's kicking their asses. I know they're about to change the rules because of him. They don't like traditionally all the tournaments have been won on blue cats, but he's able to produce big blue cats and he's bringing 2 big flatheads to the scale. So it's hard to compete against somebody who's got 4 overs and you only got 2 overs. Has it changed? Has it affected the fish? There's not enough guys that are able to do it. It's freaking, you got to be, it's not an easy, it's not like you go get forward facing sonar and suddenly you're a flathead catching machine because there's only a couple of guys in the whole country doing it at a high success rate. Will there be more guys that figure it out? Most definitely. But from what William told me, even he came as a commercial fisherman, was a great flathead fisherman before. He said it took him years of doing forward-facing sonar before he caught the first one intentionally.
A lot of the guys that I hear about it say a lot of the fish spook before they can ever get close enough to them.
He's the same. Yeah. So a lot of it is being able to get on them without spooking them.
Yeah. The big fish aren't dumb, man.
Crazy as you might go through 5, 6, 40 to 50 pounders before one of them doesn't spook.
And Chris, he said he also meant the scatter from the pinging of the sonar.
Oh, no. I've not noticed any sonar issues. Trolling motor, yes. Boat, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing from the pinging.
Sonar, no.
And I'll tell you, I've sat with.
I'll be anchored in 2 feet, 3 feet of water. And once you get settled down and that sonar is still pinging, fish will be right under the boat.
Yeah.
You'll see them under your sonar in 3 feet of water. So,
that's what I can say. I've anchored with it on and off, and I haven't noticed anything different.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think they're boat shy, yes. They're trolling motor shy, yes. They know you're there. But if you're just sitting there, they don't mind you.
Now, a noisy 13-year-old anchored in 3 foot of water will scare some fish away.
Yes, 8 or 9-year-old. We fished a tournament. My buddy Mike McClung. It was a no graph tournament. I'm thinking, all right, I'll go. I call my buddy Mike. I'm like, hey man, send me some good anchor spots so I can go anchor up. It's a no graph tournament. So he sent me some spots, and we had 2 7-year-olds on the boat. And it wasn't a minute into anchoring, I thought, there ain't no way we're going to catch a fish with these 2 freaking kids banging around on the boat. We might as well freaking give that up. So we went and drug. We ended up doing really well dragging, but
my son was younger, man. I used to laugh because tournaments would blast off at 8 o'clock at night, and he'd fall asleep at 11. And we seemed to always catch our better fish at 11:30.
Yeah.
He'd wake up half asleep, wondering why we're catching fish.
Do you find up there in your area, do you find that prime time for the flatheads, then it falls off, then you find that second prime time when right before the daylight they start turning back on? Do you
So,
find that?
so I feel like the first couple hours before it gets dark can be really active. And then there's kind of a window like around 11. Like a lot of my bigger ones, for whatever reason, have been like that 11 to 1 o'clock.
Yep.
And then I'll say for me, there's a lull in the action, almost like it's the daytime bite. You know, that 1 o'clock in the afternoon will slow down, and then it'll really ramp up the 2 hours before and the hour 2 hour after sunrise. Typically seems to be the best. Now I've
Yeah,
caught some good ones in those hours that typically are slow, but most of that bite will come in those windows.
I see the same thing here. Like you talking about that downtime area. I've caught a few, but nothing like right before daylight, those couple hours before daylight, or right before that dark, area. But yeah, I find that being truthful in this area also with the flatheads and stuff. But when do you find your prime time for your blue cats? When is your prime time?
Again, I'll say so. Like January through April, that morning bite's pretty hard to beat. From like I'll typically start trips like 7 a.m. to, let's just say 7 to 10 seems to be where the bigger fish are, for me. And then as we get into the summer months, I mean, there's no doubt that overnight is better. I mean, I've caught a few decent fish those first couple hours of the morning, but they're definitely way more active at night.
See here, trying to catch up. Chris, are you seeing on YouTube? Are you seeing any questions? On that the last one I saw was Richard over on that side. Everything's kind of gone.
I was seeing Richard's.
I didn't want to miss nobody, but Richards was the last one I've seen.
He was on Facebook now. I saw Richards. I'm seeing him. Yeah.
Okay.
John Young's asking about forward-facing sonar pinging, Bill Journey.
Okay.
Gubbin Tackles, Bill Journey Trophy. Nathan Lorick, what's up, guys? What's up, Nathan?
I just want to make sure mine didn't freeze up again. I was missing anybody.
This year, typically our morning bite's been good too that time of year, Mark. But this year I had so many trips I didn't even catch a fish before about 10:30 a.m. It's like, wow. We had so many trips. I went out there at 7 a.m. and had no fish in the boat, and then all of a sudden at 10:30 it was like the light switch turned on. I don't know what it was.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that because, like, if I set up on my spot this time of year before the sun comes up, like that 6 o'clock hour, I feel like that's dead time until as soon as that sun comes up, it's like a light switch, But that hour of darkness, rarely are we catching anything.
Yeah.
Now that flip flops when we get to the warmer months. Yeah. That's the new light switch,
Yeah. As soon as it starts getting dim, it's like, all right, you can even be in the spot and there not be any fish, and all of a sudden you look down at the graph, you're like, damn, where were all these damn fish? Because man, here they all are now. It's time. So,
Them blue cats are constantly on the move. I mean, they'll lay in the mud occasionally, but sometimes when you're not really marking a whole lot of fish, it's because they're moving just as much as you're sitting there moving around.
Yeah.
And then that move.
That's my guy right there.
That move to shallow water, in the winter months is crucial too, because typically we'll set out in some mid-range depths in that 7 to 10, and then if that sun's been out and we're especially coming off a cold period, we got a lot of mud. We got a lot of mud in our lakes in certain places, and it's like a heating blanket, man. And those fish are just drawn there. As long as that'd be a couple hours. I mean, it's not going to be worth going back there at 10 o'clock in the morning, but your bite slows down there, and you can have a better bite moving back into 3, 4, 5 foot of water as that sun's been out for a couple hours.
Yeah.
You know,
Bernie says he's going to Catfish Bay. Is that good fishing up north of there, Chris? Yes. A lot of great fishing. It's basically the same level of fishing as if you're fishing the Red River arm. So just going to be multiple patterns. Texoma, it's generally, there's probably 3 patterns. There's going to be the striper pattern. There's going to be probably the mid-depth pattern, which is going to be edges, ledges, going to be a lot of bait around those spots. And then the shallow bite, it's going to be carp and gar. Your shallow bite will be probably where you get your biggest fish. And then your mid-sized, and you can still get big ones too around those other patterns, because it's just you're gonna have to go find the fish, Bernie. Just get on that graph, boy.
Leland wants to know, my friend, do you fish more timber and laydowns or rocky areas for flatheads?
I mean, I think it's hit or miss. I feel like like I've caught some big flatheads in November and December, targeting rock piles more so than timber, as opposed to warmer months. And I think it's probably have to do with bait, maybe in the warmer months, particularly looking at timber and laydowns. Is how I would answer that. I mean, there's definitely areas in the backs of some of these creeks that do have a lot of rocks. And I'm only speaking on what's worked better for me. And I'm not sure why in the winter months, and that water's still hovering around 50, but those deeper ledges that we have there, now that's going into some 40 foot of water, but there's a lot of rock in that area.
Yeah. How tight are you fishing that rock? Are you fishing it pretty tight, or you fishing?
I try to so my big, if I'm not getting hung up or some of my rods aren't getting hung up, then I'm too far away from it.
Nice.
I mean, I try to, I mean, that's the name of the game of flathead fishing. Like you were talking about earlier, sometimes that bait might be a foot off of where you need it to be. So, I mean, don't be afraid to get it as close as that. That's why, all the rods and the heavy duty line and the big hooks. I mean, that's why you fish with that stuff. So when that fish bites, and if I've got folks on the boat and I know we're fishing in some heavy structure, it's like, hey man, as soon as that fish takes it, like it's 50-50. You're either going to win or that fish is going to win. So
I'll tell you, I'm not afraid to sit up on some big structure piles and drop it right down on the inside of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll do it in a heartbeat. And I found that works real good. Now, you might lose a little bit of tackle, but you could also catch a heck of a flathead too.
Yeah. I tell you, we got a lot of, and this is the stuff I pay attention to when the water's down. You talk about structure. We have, I don't want to say it's an issue, but we got a lot of folks that like to noodle, like, but with the hands. And there's a lot of man-made boxes that are left, just structure, man-made structure I put. I put waypoints on all that stuff.
What's the lay down for Fishing World 1, 2, 3?
Talking about what's a lay down?
Yeah.
Just any tree that's falling down into the water.
Fallen timber.
Yeah. Could be deep, could be shallow. And another thing for anybody, I mean, the fish is shallow. I mean, sometimes, man, them flatheads, the backs will be out of the water to be so shallow up there getting bait. So don't be afraid to chuck one right up there on the bank.
Kelly Gray says, Mark, do you fish flatheads with a peg float with live or dead bait or no float?
I do hit or miss. So if I'm throwing a bigger bait, like a big live crappie or white perch, it's just Carolina rig, a little bit shorter leader. And then if I'm fishing a bigger, gizzard shad, something like that, sometimes, or a bigger bluegill, I might put them on a peg float.
Do you ever use balloons or anything?
No, I used to use them when I striper fished, but I haven't got into them. I just use I've got some of those floats from the Patriot floats, little light up floats, and those have been good. There's a gentleman down here named Maynard Edwards made a ready rig float that's kind of got like a quick release. I've used those. Anything you can stick a glow stick, or now Chuck has got his bite lights out there now. So any of that stuff works. Bobber fishing with the big live crappie or big live perch is pretty exciting, man. That's probably one of the most. That's like the top water biting bass fishing to me.
I don't tell a lot of people, but I'll get back into some of these back creeks. And you go to Walmart, you get these balloons that's got the lights on the inside of them and stuff, and you sit back there on the backside and you're going for these big flatheads. It's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah,
it really is.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't tell a lot of people that, but sometimes that's a lot of fun when you're doing something like that.
Yep. It just gets cumbersome. You can only have so many rods out when you're fishing in big live baits because they'll travel.
That's it. That's
you
it.
know. But man, when they get a hold of it, man, you should start seeing that balloon go down or that big float going down, man. It's
That's it. You get back in some of these back creeks. You got some water flow coming into the backside, maybe off to the right side or something, and you just get off of that just a little bit, man. It's some real good fishing. It really is.
Absolutely, man. That nighttime fishing, like I said, don't be afraid to go. I don't think you can go too shallow.
Nah, like I said, I'm not afraid. I'll chunk it right inside of a timber, no problem.
Yeah, if you're not getting hung up flathead fishing, you need to rethink your game.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Now, you said earlier you enjoy flathead fishing more than you do blue fishing?
If I had to pick catching a 50-pound flathead or a 50-pound blue, I'd probably take the 50-pound flathead. They're just built different, man. The way they give you a fight from start to finish. Typically, a big blue can be hit or miss. Sometimes they'll run the whole time. Sometimes they come up to the top and they call uncle. And then when you get them to the boat, they wake up and they'll start fighting again. But almost every second of the fight with a big flathead, it's on.
Now, do you feel, and this is something I think about a lot because I do a lot of flathead fishing too. Do you feel that the flathead count is going down, the population going down, or do you feel it's pretty steady right now?
I think overall, just speaking on our chain of lakes, it's definitely gone down. Yeah. Back in the day, we used to have our tournaments used to be a 3-fish stringer, and it would take 120, 125 pounds, 3 fish to win. And then now, man, and it might be 80 pounds, 90 pounds.
Yeah.
So they're not like they used to be.
Yeah, I see a big decline in it myself. Now, I've talked with some biologists, local and stuff. They say, well, nah, not really. Man, I've seen a decline in it. And sometimes, I think, we were talking about biologists and stuff earlier, I know they do a lot of the studies, a lot of things, but sometimes I feel that they're not on the catfishing side sometimes. I'll just say that. I feel that they lean more.
Fish, you can't electroshock like you can smaller fish.
Yeah.
They don't shock up the same.
I think guys that are in tune with their bodies of water, they know what's going on. They can tell the catch rate has gone down. And I'm not going to say I know it's part, like I said, there's definitely folks taking flatheads out of High Rock and Baden and Tillery and all those and blues. But I do also feel that with the blues, I think they've become the predominant species because years ago, man, you would rarely ever see a blue come to the scales at High Rock. It was flatheads and channel cat. And then now, and blues have really taken over. And I know that puts a hurting on flatheads too. So
I've seen it right.
Start taking the big flatheads out of there, that's not like it doesn't rebound.
No, not to what it used to be.
Texas used to produce giants.
Yeah,
and our record is from a 1981. So
yeah,
I'll tell you, there's way more anglers now. If there was fish that big, if there was still a bunch of fish similar, that record should have fallen.
Yeah,
that record.
Well, just like in the last, at least speaking for High Rock, in the last couple of years, there's been several blues in the 60s. 9 years ago, man, you would have never heard of someone catching a 60-pound blue out of there.
Yeah.
It's not going to surprise me if they don't get taken out of there, but I think that lake will put 100-pound fish out there in the next 5-6 years.
Nice.
So we're gonna see.
Our lake should be producing that, but juggers.
Yeah, that's it's like you hit the nail on the head earlier. There's got to be a common ground to make everybody happy. There's got to be a way that
eat. Okay, those guys want to eat.
Yeah.
Right? If you can make them understand that there will be plenty of eaters if y'all throw back those giants, because you take all the little ones you want, and there will be plenty of fish for everyone. But if you keep taking all those giants, eventually there's not going to be fish for everyone. There might be some dinks for y'all to still catch. But
I've yet to understand why somebody wants to eat a 50, 60, 70-pound fish.
they want to brag to their friends about how big a fish they caught that's sitting in the back of their pickup truck.
Yeah, to me, if I'm going to eat anything out of my lake, it's about a 4-pound channel cat or a 4-pound blue. That to me is the best tasting.
3 to 5 pounds.
You know, but you know what's interesting, man, and all the light being shed on social media. I've had, I mean, just in the last week, just off of a post here and there, a lot of people that didn't even know what a pay lake was, that now know what pay lakes are. So it's just going to be it's a layered battle. And it's like I told somebody,
a way to post that you're not actually marketing for those pay lakes, where some guys are posting the name of that trophy pay lake up there, and I'm immediately like, you're what you guys fail to realize is there's a ton of people that don't give a crap.
Yeah.
When you tell them this guy just stocked 10,000 pounds of giants and there's a 105 and 480s in that mix, you think that a lot of these people care. That actually makes them think, all right, I'm going to go fish it. And all of a sudden, now they got the highest freaking month of sales. They got in the next month, that same dude said, we stocked more fish this month than we ever have.
Well, and you also got to think, man, in the world we live in now, convenience is king. Whether it's Uber bringing you McDonald's twice as expensive, it's really no different. Nobody wants to put the time and effort into fishing. So if you can drive up the road and throw a piece of bait that you bought at the store and put it in there and get the feel catching that big fish, I mean, unfortunately, it's a society that we've come to, you know.
I'm going to ask you a question. Why haven't we shut him down?
That's what I want to know.
Why do
you want to know the answer to that?
Well,
I'll tell it to you.
Texas shut them down 40 years ago. Why are they still allowed there?
It's all money, man. It's money.
Well, do you also, man? I don't want. I'm not saying
how much money are they generating between? Are they generating more money for the state than guys like you and guys like Jamie, guys like me, who are buying boats, all this equipment, gas, lodging to travel to these lakes?
Well, but you also got to think that a lot of these lakes it's gambling too. So there's a lot of money. There's a lot of money at stake there. So I mean, I know we have our tournaments or whatnot, but I really feel like the two-sided issue is obviously regulation, which, in my opinion, and I don't have proof, but you have to imagine that the guys that are running these big pay lakes are lining the pockets of some of the decision makers. It has to be happening because nobody can tell you it's morally or ethically right. And the second half of it is, once regulations are put into place, half of the wildlife commissions don't have the officers to enforce it.
Well, do you feel that
they protect some snowy owl?
Well,
that has no bearing. There's no money involved.
Let me tell you what. So I fished high rock now for 15 years. I've been stopped one time by a game warden to check my life jacket.
Yeah.
But if our white bass season is getting ready to fire up here in the next couple weeks, you'll go up into the river. There'll be 6 game warden boats up there, and if you have one white bass that's a half inch short, they got that ticket book out before they even turn the motor on to come get you.
Yeah, there's a gazillion white bass that will never be affected by illegal harvest. I mean, there's more freaking white bass in all these fisheries we're in than there are big gizzard shad. I'm not even kidding you.
Yeah,
more white bass than there are large gizzard shad.
I feel like at the end of the day, it's going to take a collective effort from all of us that enjoy the conservation side to form. And I'm not gonna get into the ACA and the headaches there, but there's got to be some form of organized synergy to help fund some kind of regulation.
But do you feel that
it was Jimmy Houston and Bill Dance growing up, and I think they educated the kids.
Yeah,
like me. You know, I grew up in the early, I was watching that stuff since 1980.
Yeah.
And, they talked about kissing the fish and making sure you turn them back so that the next guy can catch them next Saturday. And, and we all took heart to that. And I wish that the catfishing thing if there could be somebody now. There is no Saturday morning fishing show that all the kids watch, but if there was some type of deal where you could catch these kids at an early age before they get corrupted into just, I'm going to keep this thing. And,
I'm gonna step away and grab my charger real quick. I'll be right back.
Yeah,
Chris, I know, speaking on this subject, and I've thought about this, man. And I've talked to a lot of officers and different things. Do you feel sometimes that they say, okay, this is the way to keep the population at a certain steady level by not enforcing and shutting these pay lakes down? Do you feel sometimes they say, well, we kind of need to keep population at a certain point? Do you ever feel that they think about it like that sometimes? That's why we're not. I don't
think so. I think they try to study it, but in order to get a regulation passed, you got to have some scientific data to back it up. You can't just go off what everybody's actually telling you who's on the water every week. You got to have some 5 to 10 year scientific study done before you can actually have the scientific backing to change the regulation. That's the way it's done in Texas anyway. It has to be studied. So you'll get, for instance, you'll have the University of North Texas or the University of Austin do a scientific study, and that may take 5 to 6 years to do that study, and then that information is then used to change regulations rather than going off of what all the guides and all the guys that are on the water every day are saying.
Yeah.
Hey, they're killing all these fish. They're taking all these fish. We're seeing the numbers go down. You can't pick up these big fish in a shocking program. They don't shock up.
Yeah.
That's common knowledge. You will get a few to shock up, but they don't all. Big fish don't shock up like small fish do. So you can't count them all. And so they're getting all the same, pretty much the same numbers that they've been getting. So they're like, oh, regulations are working. That's not true.
Yeah.
Not true.
Well, this also goes back, Chris, earlier in the show where I said a lot of people are considering, like I just saw in chat, catfish, trash fish. That was the old saying, trash fish. But see, we had enough education. People know now about trophy catfishing and stuff like that. But, okay, if you're not going to get rid of the pay lakes, why can we not say, okay, you cannot have fish in these pay lakes over 10 pounds? What? I mean, if we're going to have some kind of little battle here, why can't
Texas, you're not allowed to have wild caught fish, just like you can't go trap freaking deer. You can't just go out to public land and say, I'm going to go trap these deer and put them on my property.
That's it.
You go buy the property. It's your freaking lake. It's your freaking, ranch. You can trap those deer and put them in a high fence, but you can't go to public because the lake is public. The river's public. Why are they allowed to go trap them out of there and go?
Yeah,
that's it. I know we've talked about the money part of it, and like I said,
it's a layered. Yeah, it's a layered issue, man. There's not going to be one common fix and there's not one common reason,
Yeah,
I look at it like this: catfish aren't respected. A lot of guys that just want to eat them, so they're like, it doesn't really matter. They're just eating fish anyway. And even a lot of guys that guide for other species, they put out jugs. They're going to keep those. But you say, oh, all these guides, none of them keep big fish. Well, baloney, because the ones that aren't guiding for catfish, they keep in theirs. And if if you got 3 guys on the boat and they put out 75 jugs, and you got 3 guys on the boat and you catch 3 big fish, they're keeping all 3 of them.
And I just saw this in chat too, and I was going to touch bases on this. Even bow fishing. I've seen so many of these bow fishermen now. I know I'm piss off somebody, and I know people, they go, man, why do you want to talk? That's what we do here. We keep it real. But bow fishermen taking a lot of
happy, and we piss off the
but bow fishermen are taking a lot of our fish out too, man. They just as hard on them. So why are we allowing all of this to keep going? With our catfishing, why are we considered pay lakes keep going? Why are we allowing jugging to keep going? Why are we allowing set hooks, trout lines? Why are we fighting against our catfish?
I think people in power have no real. There's no real skin in the game for them. They don't freaking care about fishing.
That's the ticket.
Radar. They got bigger fish to fry. It's just catfishing, and people been eating catfishing for 250 years or whatever they say. And so, who cares? Because look at these, they don't realize that it's changing. It's not just, there's
definitely big money in our sport. There's no doubt about it. Like you said, I mean, these guys are spending 40, 50 grand on boats and $150 a pop on a rod and another $300 on a reel and the gas every weekend. So, I mean, at some point in time, that's got to start being looked at. And the thing that gets me about these guys that defend the pay lakes are that, well, we can't go do this, or Bobby's in a wheelchair and can't do this. And I've had a handicapped brother my whole life, so I can be, but there's plenty of access. It boils back down to what I said, man. It's convenience. If I can get my McDonald's order to me and then I can go take it up the road and go catch a 45-pound fish, why go buy the boat? Why go buy the rods and reels? Why put the time in the water when I can just go do it? So part of the side that we can change is just education. And you're not going to change everybody, but and here's the other thing. And I'm just going to put this out there too, that all the name bashing, whether it's respected guys calling someone who fishes the number one thing you're not going to do is if you call somebody a dummy or a wussy or whatever because they're fishing a pay lake, you're never going to make any kind of headway. You know what I mean? As frustrating as it is, the best thing you can do is hope to educate and hope you can change somebody's mind.
A lot of those guys enjoy pissing people off. It's just the nature of human beings at this point. They actually, there's something that they really enjoy about when you're mad about somebody keeping a big fish. They love it.
Yeah.
And, here's one thing that like all these Facebook groups, and some of them are some of the biggest catfish groups on Facebook. They allow people to post about killing big fish, keeping these big fish. They allow the negativity that those guys bring because they like pissing people off. They thrive on the conflict and and some of these guys that run these groups or moderate these groups are my friends. They're big fish anglers. They're pro conservation. Why not moderate some of this out? Because I believe if you give them a platform, and they're saying, oh, everybody has their right. But if you give them a platform, aren't they rallying other people to their side of it as well? Where I feel like maybe if y'all moderated some of this negative crap out of here, it might take a long time, but in a bass forum, do you think they're going to put up with people keeping 12-pound bass?
No.
They're going to run you out of there. And eventually you get to where it is now, where everybody just kind of is respectful about it because they don't want to have to deal with the negative side of it. But catfishing, it seems to me that a lot of the guys that are really pro conservation are scared to really, maybe cut some of that other crap out because everybody's got a right. It's legal, so they're within their legal right to keep a fish or whatever. But
one thing, Chris, I have heard a lot more though, and I've seen, by just talking or seeing it, there is a lot more people now understanding. Some people that fish pay lakes understand now the conservation part of it and has completely left and understand now by education
left. But how many came that weren't fishing them before?
That's
from
true.
all of this publicity they just got the last year, because from what I'm seeing, is they're having record freaking turnout at these deals now.
Yeah.
So all the stuff that all these guys are trying to unite against, they brought a spotlight to it, and they probably convinced some guys that it was not right. But you also got some people thinking maybe I'll just go to that pay leg now because hell, I want to catch me a 100-pounder.
Well, like I said, man, the money side of it, not just for regulation, but the gambling and the betting and all that stuff plays a part into it. So I always figure all that stuff boils down to money.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping some of these young anglers coming up, one of them will end up getting into politics, and they'll want to carry that mantle and get some things really changed where it needs to be changed. Because I don't believe the parks departments are going to do anything about it. It's to me, you've got to have some people that really.
Well, I'll give you a perfect example. So we have a 132-inch rule on several of our lakes in the chain, and we've had numerous times. I mean, video, phone of tanks full of bigger than 32-inch fish.
Yeah.
Called wildlife, and they don't do anything about it. Yeah. So I mean, at that point, now you got a regulation in place, but now you can't get. So that's what I'm saying. There's so many layers you have to overcome. It's just going to take some persistence, keep educating. It's not something that's going to be fixed overnight.
And that's where you said I was trying to get to earlier. I think a lot of things they turn a blind eye to. A lot of things they're going to write you a ticket within a second for it.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I find that's really a shame. It shouldn't be that way. I don't understand if you're gonna man, we could have a whole show about this boy. If you're going to enforce a damn law, enforce it on everything, not just one thing. Enforce it on everything.
Yep.
If you're going to write me a ticket for something that's within a hair, but then you're not going to write him a ticket for a catfish or having too many, then you shouldn't be in your job. You shouldn't be in the job.
Well, as an angler and a North Carolina fishing license holder, which that's what we pay for, if I call and report that and you turn a blind eye, I mean that's just you. I mean you really honestly feel defeated. Like what else? What else can you do? You know.
I guarantee if it's a duck and you shoot it,
absolutely,
with the wrong shot, you're going to get your gun, your boat, and everything.
Listen, we don't have a
deer.
Yeah.
If you did that with the bass or whatever, if you took them,
it fires me up, man, because
you posted that stuff online, like I've seen for catfishing, like Tawakoni. I saw a guy he had a string of giants. Oh, I mean they were up like chest high, and he had a whole string of them, and people were like, "Oh, you turn him into the game warden." Game warden did a damn thing about that. But if you strung up a bunch of 10-pound bass, like Fort boy, they'd be at your house kicking your door down, and you'd be taking your boat, all your stuff.
Yep.
So
what good is that number game theft? You call, hey man, I want to report a game. You do it on a deer, they're gonna
do that with whitetail
deer. You do it on a catfish, they're gonna laugh you down the road.
You do that with whitetail deer, they'll be setting up electronic animatronic deer out in the field. They will have an entire freaking operation set up to get whoever's poaching.
I'm just going to start telling them that they got 10-pound largemouth bass in that tank, and they ought to come check it out.
That's it. I mean, man, what's it going to take, guys, for somebody to wake up and say, okay, sooner or later something's got to stop, or we're not going to have no big catfish left in our rivers no more. I mean, I just thought, what was it, Virginia? They just turned it loose or something.
Maryland is one. Maryland is trying to eradicate blue catfish, and I don't know if Christian Warren them up on the James River just did a pretty interesting study. He got 10 electronic tags, and I think they put them on fish that were 50 pounds and bigger. And the state biologist is tracking the movement of those trophy fish to prove the point that it's not the catfish that are eating the blue crab, which is the main draw of why they're trying to get rid of all the trophy catfish up in that area.
But didn't they just release some of the regulations on catfishing up on the James in that area? Didn't they just make it pretty much now where they can go in there and pretty much just wipe it out also? Didn't they just release?
I don't know if they finalized that bill or not. I would have to check with Christian and see where they're at. But they are basically going to hand out free fishing licenses for blue catfish and this, that, and the other. So
no limits on big fish, and they're building fish processing plants is what I'd heard. So
yeah, I just don't, catfish reproduce at a astonishing rate. So you're never going to run out of catfish. But like we've said, those ones that are 40, 50, 60 pounds have been around a long time. And those just don't get replaced overnight. So it's eventually the pay lakes are just going to run out of product. Then what do? You've been feeding all these people 50 and 60-pound fish,
traveling further and further to get their fish.
But still, I mean, at some point in time, I mean, you can't replace them as quick as they're taking them.
Right.
So eventually, if they are getting fish from Wyoming, you know what I mean? Eventually, you're going to run out of fish, and then what are your customers going to do? I don't know.
It's going to be
hopefully we can get a stop put on
fish for them, because you got to go to Wyoming to buy it to catch them.
Well, even like I see guys that post with these farm raised channel cats. I'm like, dude, I'll share your channel all day, man. I think what you're doing is good for people. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Ethically sourced, but I don't know. It's something that pisses you off when you're just, I guess, just even a good human being, knowing that what you're doing is just not good. You know,
it gets underneath my skin. It's hard to talk sometimes when it makes you.
it is. I'm trying to be more mindful to be educating folks rather than belittling them. If anything, you at least get someone to listen to you.
That's it.
As much as you just want to go off on a tangent, you know.
That's it.
But it is encouraging that you get. I mean, for the little bit of reaction you get from folks that they didn't understand what they were and now they are. Who knows if there's 100,000 of us that are conservationists and you can change one person's mind every day. Who knows?
And I hope to hear a lot more of that. It'll be nice to hear a lot more people like, man, I learned from it. It wasn't right, and I see the right path now, and I would love to hear a lot more of it. I really would.
Well, and that, and I tell you what, in every trip I've taken people out, we end up on this conversation about conservation and taking fish and trophy fish and, and more of an educational route. It's so we caught some fish and people are ready to put them in the live well. And I said, no. Anything 15 pounds and over, we put back because they're grown for the trophy fish. But anything 15 and under, you guys want to keep. We keep as many as you guys want to clean. We can make that happen for you.
I saw, Chris, you just posted it where John Wayne said, "Let's go get our fish back and restock the rivers."
we deal with juggers, and here it's guys keeping fish because they like to eat them. So we caught this dude right here. Look at the jug line I pulled about a 2-foot piece of string out of this one, had a kale hook in it.
Wow.
Just fell out in the boat after I got the fish in the boat. It come off a jug. So we catch a ton like that. Usually they're really big fish because they swim off with the jug. And I guess a lot of them are able to rub that jug off or whatever. But how many of them, because a lot of guys will use 250-pound braided line for their jug line. So I don't know that catfish might have a problem breaking that one off, but
yeah, it's gonna take a united front to get it moving in the right direction for sure. And it's a lot. I'm not familiar with how the legislative side of it works.
It's gonna take one heck of an army for sure. I know
it moves slow. It's a slow process. Most of this stuff has to be studied over time to see that there's an actual negative impact on the fisheries. Enough guys have to get busted doing it illegally, and then eventually they'll say, "Hey, maybe we ought to do something about this." And
we just need to follow in Kentucky's footsteps because they seem to be on top of their stuff pretty good. I'll say more bust.
Some guys there in their fish and game department that were cat fishermen. So I think that helps. You start getting them to talk to other wildlife guys about the problem. If we'd have some guys in these other states that were in the parks department or wildlife department or river department, whatever that department.
So what you're saying is, anybody at home watching, if you want a career change and you like to catfish, we need you to go to your game department and fill out an application.
Maybe we can get enforcing the laws the right way, man. I mean,
well,
really,
like I said, it's a two-sided coin. It's funny that those dudes will come out of the woodwork for a white bass, but when you have pictures and video of them breaking a regulation, they don't do anything, man. That's I don't know. It's kind of problematic.
That's it. Like John Wayne said, let's jug their pay lakes and see what they think about it.
Actually, we were sitting at a restaurant up here, far away from any lake one day, and there was about 6 or 7 game wardens that came in and ate. Well, I ended up buying their lunch, and I just put a note on the back, about catfish conservation. Did it ever do anything? I don't know, but it's probably better than interrupting their lunch. And
if we don't never say nothing, nothing's going to get done.
That's right.
So sooner or later, something's got to get done. I mean, maybe some changes, new laws, something, the right person getting in a certain office to push it where it needs to go. But sooner or later, something's got to get done.
Well, and all the bass and crappie guys ought to be on our side too, because if we run out of catfish, we all know how to catch bass and crappie for bait, so we'll just start fishing their tournament trails. And
that's it.
And stuff.
Will Hunt says, "I'm losing my job in May. I can do a career change." So, Will,
Will
run for state representative, and then you can represent your district. And if somebody complains in your district about these freaking guys hauling these catfish, then you can lobby for a bill to be changed. Lobby for a bill for a law to be changed. And I think that's really the deal, is a lot of these laws need to be changed to conserve these really big fish. That's my take on it.
Yep.
I don't believe the Parks Department with their regulations is going to do it.
Nope. It's regulation and enforcement, the two-sided coin.
Got to outlaw the pay lakes.
Yeah, or at least say, hey, listen, take some 10-pound fish from everywhere and put them in there. Because the reality is, at the end of the day, there's
the 10-pound fish. Let's just make it where how Texas did it. If you're going to have a pay lake, it's going to have to be farm-raised fish.
Or farm-raised fish, yeah.
Guess what? No more pay lakes here. They all went out of business.
Yep.
Bye.
I wouldn't shed any tears. I'd be okay with that.
That's for sure. And I think a lot of people would be the same way.
Yeah, Michael Cox says game wardens hunt. Oh, game warden hunt. Yeah, there you go. I was going to say, a lot of game wardens do hunt, or if they do fish, it's for bass. So
I can guarantee you, I'm like y'all, man. Comes duck season, come other seasons, there's seem to come out the woodworks.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Or on 4th of July
season, they're all beating down the deer camps here.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
And in the summer, it's all safety checks on boats for
DUIs and everything else. They'll be full-fledged. Like I said, I'll see more game wardens on 4th of July Memorial Day than I do for 20 years.
All there. So what's more important, checking the drunks and safety regulations, or catching a few guys with, harvesting big catfish?
I say deputize some of us and let us do all the background work with some cameras and get the proof, and then let them close them down.
I mean, if the state's running tight on money, I can volunteer my services. Just give me a badge. I don't need. Give me a badge and a taser. I don't even need your gun.
Yeah. Keep the gun. Just let us do what we do.
Don't even put me on the payroll. Just let me enforce the law. That's all I need.
We need a real charismatic trophy catfish angler to come out with a Saturday morning show, like Jimmy Houston did in 1978 or whatever.
Chris,
here we are 40 years later, and you'll be run out of town if you keep a big bass.
That might be the next calling for us, Chris. Who knows?
There you go.
Oh, man.
Man, I like to fish. I don't want to do all that.
That gets to be a lot of work for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Oh man.
All right, guys. Well, Jamie, anything you want to promote before we get out of here?
Man, I just want to say thank you to everybody. Man, of course, appreciate y'all supporting us and everything. And guys, on this topic that we had tonight, go call your people up there. Go call them. Talk to them, send them letters, emails about this situation, and maybe one voice gets to the right person. Maybe we can do something.
I think if you can keep telling people, telling people about what you love rather than what you hate, I think that'll probably help more than anything. When you go complain to somebody about what they're doing, it ain't gonna work. But if you can tell them why you love them, maybe you can flip some people that way. I know that works with kids, and I think if you keep doing that with the kids, then over a long period of time, it'll change. The paradigm has shifted, so there is more of a shift towards that, and I think it's because of more and more guys are educating the kids. The older guys, they're going to keep doing it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I agree with you 100%.
And positivity is spreads, and negativity spreads. So if you're a negative dude talking all this trash about it, it ain't you think you're actually battling, man, you're actually causing a problem. But if you can keep it pretty positive, I think it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a slow process. It may be when we're old, 80-year-old farts, we'll look back and say, man, when we were hardcore cat fishermen, it was brutal. They were keeping all these fish in these pay lakes and juggers, but we'll see.
Yeah, just keep pushing it, guys. Maybe, like I said, maybe the right person, we can get to them, and maybe something can get done.
That's right.
Mark, tell them how they can get a hold of you if they want to come fishing on High Rock.
If you want to go fishing High Rock, you can visit us. Just catsontherockguideservice.com. It's got all the info and contact. And we're on Facebook too, so reach out. Feel free if you got any kind of question. So, if I can help you out in any way, reach out.
I love it.
I tell you what, man, I appreciate you coming on the show tonight. You've answered a lot of questions and stuff. I've really enjoyed it. A lot of good topics, and stuff and techniques, and we really appreciate you for sure.
Yeah, man, love y'all's show. It's weird to be on this side of it instead of the, but always enjoy it.
Appreciate you coming on and sharing with us. The guys enjoyed it, so
awesome, man. Yeah, good show.
What you got?
Man, I just want to say, appreciate everybody coming to the Slime Show. Can't wait until next Wednesday night, man. Let's do it again.
Yeah, next Wednesday we got, let's see. We got Colton Howell with Multi-Bar, and then I think Tyler Barnes after that. So should be some good shows coming up. I think we got after that, we're going to have the Catfish Professor Tim Scott. So a lot of good fish talking. Get your popcorn ready.
There we go.
Tight lines. God bless. Azul out.
Good luck tomorrow.
Hey, thanks, man. I got a boatload of Operation Vets with Nets, guys.
Yeah.
Pressure's on. So
I'm hoping, man. If we could just stretch some good strings the first couple hours, I'll be all right.
I just want one good one. Just
yep.
Good one.
I need to. Yeah. Hopefully we can put them on some. It won't be from lack of effort, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna grind like I've never done before. So
yeah, definitely, man.
If you ever down this way, brother, definitely get with me, man. Let's do some fishing, my friend.
All right, that sounds good, man. We'll make it happen.
All right, guys.
All right, fellas. Y'all have a good night.